In the heart of a quiet village, two bakers, Eli and Sam, were known for their humble yet cherished bread. The village was small, with only a few houses scattered across the green landscape. The villagers knew each other well, and Eli and Sam were at the center of it all, baking fresh loaves every morning and sharing a warm bond. Eli's bakery was nothing grand. His oven, a small clay structure tucked at the back of his modest home, could bake only a few loaves at a time. Still, it was enough to get by. Eli worked from dawn to dusk, mixing flour and water, kneading dough with worn hands, and carefully watching the bread rise in his small oven. The smell of freshly baked bread always filled the air, making his tiny village a little warmer, a little more alive. On the other hand, Sam's bakery was larger, built from stone, with a wide brick oven that could bake dozens of loaves at once. Sam had more customers, more space, and a little more money. Yet, he never showed off or acted better than Eli. They had grown up together and shared everything. Their stories, their troubles, and their dreams of a better life. One crisp morning, while the two were sitting outside their bakeries, enjoying a break with a hot cup of tea, Eli sighed. "Sam," he said, scratching his head, "I wish I could bake more bread. If I had a bigger oven, I could sell more and earn enough to fix the roof. But I don't have enough to build one." Sam, ever the optimistic one, smiled warmly. "Why not work together? I've got a big oven. We could share it. You bring the flour, I bring the space, and we split the profits equally." Eli paused, considering the idea. That sounds like it could work. But are you sure you're okay with that? I don't want to take advantage of your bigger oven. Of course not, Sam laughed. We're friends. Friends help each other. Let's do this together, Eli. It'll be good for both of us. Eli smiled, feeling a spark of hope. All right, let's do it. The two friends shook hands. It wasn't just a business deal. It was a partnership, a promise to work side by side, and it filled Eli with excitement for the first time in a long while. For several weeks, Eli and Sam worked together, mixing their flour and using Sam's oven to bake more bread than either of them could have alone. The villagers loved the bread, and word of their partnership spread quickly. Business boomed, and Eli's home was finally going to get that new roof he had been dreaming of. The village market was always busy with people lining up for their bread, cakes, and pastries. But their success caught the eye of Mr. Stone, the wealthy baker from the town. He ran a much larger bakery in the center of town, with golden crusts and fancy decorations, but his shop had seen fewer customers lately. The villagers were no longer buying his bread. He could see the writing on the wall. Eli and Sam were a threat to his business. One day, Mr. Stone decided to visit the village. He made a point of walking past Eli's small bakery, looking at the bustling activity around Sam's shop. "Well, well," Mr. Stone said loudly, pretending to admire the work. "This bread looks good, but imagine how much better it would taste if it were baked in your own oven, Eli. Why share with Sam when you could make it all yourself? You've got the skills." Eli felt a stirring of doubt. He hadn't thought of it that way before. "I suppose it would be nice to have my own oven," he muttered, half to himself. Sam, noticing the change in Eli's demeanor, spoke up. "Eli, we've been doing fine. Let's not let Mr. Stone's words get to you. We agreed on working together, and it's been good for both of us." But Eli was already lost in thought. The more he considered Mr. Stone's words, the more they made sense. Why should he share the profits when he was the one doing most of the work? Slowly, his feelings of gratitude towards Sam began to fade, replaced with a sense of pride and perhaps a bit of resentment. The following morning, the two friends sat together, as they always did, but the air between them was different. Eli was silent, staring at his bread as he kneaded it. Sam noticed the shift, but didn't say anything, thinking it was just a momentary feeling. After a while, Eli broke the silence. "Sam, I think I need to build my own oven." Sam looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to rely on you anymore," Eli said firmly, though his voice shook with uncertainty. "I've saved enough money to build a bigger oven. I'll do it myself. I don't need your help." Sam frowned. "Eli, building an oven isn't cheap. You don't have to do this. We've been working so well together." "I've made up my mind," Eli replied, his voice hard. "I'm tired of sharing. I want more for myself." Sam opened his mouth to protest, but saw the stubborn look in Eli's eyes. He didn't argue any further. Eli began spending his savings on bricks and clay, determined to build the oven on his own. It was a lot of work, and the progress was slow. Meanwhile, Sam continued baking alone, his heart heavy with the strain of their falling out. But as weeks went by, both of their businesses began to suffer. Without their combined efforts, customers began to go elsewhere. Some customers preferred Eli's bread, but others missed Sam's variety of baked goods. It wasn't long before both men realized that working alone wasn't as profitable as they had thought. One evening, just as Eli was putting the finishing touches on his oven, a strong gust of wind swept through the village. Sparks from Eli's fire flew into the dry grass surrounding his house. Within moments, the flames began to spread, creeping toward his home and bakery. Sam, seeing the smoke from his bakery, rushed toward Eli's house, but by the time he arrived, the fire had already consumed most of the building. Eli was standing helplessly, staring at the destruction. "Sam," Eli called out, his voice strained with grief. "It's all gone. My bakery, my home, everything." Sam didn't speak. He just pulled Eli into a tight hug. But even as they stood together, the fire spread to Sam's bakery. The flames consumed both of their livelihoods in a matter of hours. "I'm so sorry," Eli whispered, his eyes full of regret. "I was stubborn. I should have listened to you." Sam smiled sadly. "It's all right, Eli. We'll rebuild. We'll do it together." After the fire, the village was left in shock. Eli and Sam had lost everything. Their bakeries, their homes, their livelihood, all reduced to ash. But despite the heavy loss, the two friends knew they had to rebuild. However, the road ahead was long, and it wasn't going to be easy. In the days that followed, while the two men worked together to clean up the debris and salvage what little they could, Mr. Stone took advantage of their misfortune. The wealthy baker knew that the villagers were desperate, and he seized the opportunity to raise the prices of his bread. Now that those two village bakers are out of business, I'll be the only one supplying bread in this town, Mr. Stone boasted to his customers. "You'll have to pay more, but you'll get the finest bread in the land." The villagers grumbled, but they had little choice. Mr. Stone had the best oven, and they couldn't afford to go without bread. It wasn't long before his shop was crowded with people, all reluctantly paying the inflated prices. The sight of this frustrated Eli and Sam. They were angry, not just at Mr. Stone, but at themselves. If they had stayed united, perhaps things would have turned out differently. As they sat together one evening, the pain of their loss weighed heavily on them. "Mr. Stone is making a fortune off our misfortune," Eli said, his voice low with bitterness. "And we can't even buy enough flour to start over." Sam, ever the optimist, shook his head. "We can't let him take everything from us. We have to fight back, but we'll need help." The two friends went to Mrs. Reed, the village elder, who was known for her wisdom and fairness. She had seen many troubles in her long life and had a reputation for finding solutions when no one else could. When Eli and Sam explained their situation, Mrs. Reed listened carefully, her calm demeanor never wavering. "I understand," she said, after a long pause. "Mr. Stone's greed is damaging to everyone, but we must approach this wisely. The villagers need to see that they are stronger together than under his control. We'll rebuild your bakeries, and we'll make sure Mr. Stone understands that the heart of this village is in unity." The next morning, Mrs. Reed gathered the villagers at the town square. Eli and Sam stood beside her, their heads held high despite the challenges they had faced. Mrs. Reed spoke to the villagers with calm but firm words. "We must show Mr. Stone that greed will not break us. Eli and Sam are the heart of this village. They bake with love, and it's time we show that love is more important than money. The villagers, inspired by Mrs. Reed's words, agreed to help. They gathered their savings, offered their hands, and worked together to rebuild Eli and Sam's bakeries. They helped to gather the materials, from the wood to the flour, and worked tirelessly for days to restore what had been lost. Slowly but surely, the two bakeries began to take shape once again. Eli and Sam were touched by the generosity of the villagers, and their hearts began to heal. Days turned into weeks, and finally, the new bakery was ready. It was larger and more beautiful than before, a true symbol of what could be accomplished when people worked together. The ovens were bigger, the bread fresher, and the pastries more delicious. The villagers were proud of what they had built together. But Mr. Stone was not pleased. His customers had started returning to Eli and Sam's bakery, drawn by the warmth and the smell of freshly baked bread. He had been forced to lower his prices, but he still felt confident in his wealth and power. One afternoon, Mr. Stone went to visit Mrs. Reed. He was not pleased with the turn of events. "I don't understand, Mrs. Reed," he said, his voice sharp. "Why did you turn the villagers against me? I've always given them the best bread." Mrs. Reed looked at him with calm eyes. "You did not turn the villagers against you, Mr. Stone. You did that yourself. Greed, when left unchecked, leads to destruction. It's not about being the richest. It's about being the kindest, the most generous, and the most understanding." Mr. Stone stood still for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. For the first time, he saw that his wealth had isolated him from the very people he sought to serve. He had focused so much on profit that he had lost sight of the simple joys of sharing and helping others. Mrs. Reed smiled gently. "If you want to regain the village's trust, it's not about lowering your prices or boasting about your wealth. It's about giving, about understanding that what you have can be shared. That is the true secret to happiness." The bakery that Eli and Sam had rebuilt together became a beloved center of the village. The smell of fresh bread wafted through the air every morning, drawing people from near and far. The villagers knew that the two bakers had worked hard, not just for themselves, but for the community. They were more than just bakers. They were a symbol of what could be accomplished through friendship and unity. Even Mr. Stone came to visit. At first, he was reluctant, still unsure of how to fit into this new way of thinking. But over time, he began to understand the value of kindness and sharing. He sent orders their way, and sometimes he even helped out with the baking. It wasn't much, but it was a start. One sunny morning, Eli and Sam stood in front of their bakery, now officially named the Village Oven. The sun shone brightly, and the sound of laughter and conversation filled the air. The two friends looked at each other, their hearts full of gratitude. "Sam," Eli said, a wide grin on his face, "we did it. We really did it." Sam laughed, slapping Eli on the back. "Together, my friend. We did it together." And so, Eli and Sam's bakery became a success, not because of the bread they baked, but because of the love and unity they had shared with the village. In the end, they learned the most valuable lesson of all. When people come together, they are stronger than any obstacle. The end.